So, Steve, how are you?
Very good, very good. Yeah,
How
I'm here with a cup of tea and all ready to go. So,
awesome! Yeah, how's the start of the year been?
it's not been great. Some family issues,
Hmm.
but yeah, now back into work. I've been doing a lot of marking for the last 2 weeks. I've been in
Oh,
marking hell,
okay.
and yeah, it's looking quite busy. I've got a nice little gig coming up for 3 weeks in Switzerland where I'm going to be playing to the well-heeled, and we get a little bit
Nice.
of downtime to do some skiing. So I don't know whether I'm
Excellent.
more about the playing or the skiing. So yeah, it's looking good. So I'm quite busy, sort of coming up in February, I think. So yeah, it's been quite
Excellent.
fun.
Good. So, what are you up to? What are you up to? Teaching wise, working, gigging wise.
Well, right now it's funny. It sort of goes through peaks and troughs, I think, for me. I'm not doing a massive amount of gigging. I was quite busy before Christmas,
Hmm.
and I did little bits and pieces, and I sort of I'm how do I put this? I'm more selective about the gigs that I choose now. I
Yeah.
think sometimes, in fact, some of the gigs I do now for very little money or no money at all,
Hmm.
and obviously I still do my the paying gigs,
Yeah.
uh, functions and the rest of it, but often they're jobs, and
Hmm.
it's just you just
Yeah.
get through. Yeah, so yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like really, really busy with gigs. Like I said, a couple of weeks I'm going to be busy, playing every night for
Hmm.
about weeks, which is really cool. Playing with a really great drummer, an amazing singer called Damien Flood,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, so and the drummer, yeah, he's an amazing guy called Vinny Lammy. Used to play with the Spice Girls, so yeah,
Okay.
if you got a good drummer,
Y- You don't need
it's
much else.
everything, isn't it? And
Yeah.
then yeah, next week I'm back at uni teaching,
Okay.
so pretty much back into it. Yeah, so back teaching for a couple of weeks, and then 3 weeks off from
Nice.
teaching and into it. Yeah, I'm pretty busy, and then thinking about YouTube, and yeah, I've
Hmm.
got stuff going on, to be honest. So yeah, quite a
Cool.
lot.
Where are you teaching?
So I teach at BIMM London.
Hmm.
Funny enough, yeah, I live down in Brighton and Hove, but I don't teach there anymore. I used to do a bit of teaching down there. In fact, I first started at BIMM Brighton back in, 2003, I think it was, back
Yeah.
in the day. And left there, moved to London. So yeah, my main teaching gig is in BIMM London in Fulham, which is
Okay.
cool. So I'm there for a couple of days a week. And then the rest of the time I'm teaching online. I'm doing a lot more online,
Hmm.
you know, I guess since lockdown,
Yeah.
a lot of people want to do it. And
Yeah.
since my YouTube channel has sort of taken off a little bit, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm still small fry compared to the Beatos of this world, but
Yeah.
I'm teaching a lot more guys in America now. If we can
Okay.
make the time zone difference work. So yeah, a lot of guitarists from around the world, which is great. Really enjoying that. So that's super cool.
That's cool. That's really. I mean, I think the technology that we've got in terms of just using things like Zoom and Skype just makes teaching online really easy. There's not a lot lost between. I mean, that face-to-face interaction is obviously not there, and you can't do things in real time. But 90% of teaching you can do online, and
I
it's.
think I think the technology will come. I think
Mm,
and I think pretty quickly as well, where you'll be able to do stuff in time, because now it's sort of you have to sort of demonstrate something, whereas in a classroom or in a real
mm,
lesson,
yeah,
we can both play along to a track, or I can play some chords and
yeah.
whatever. So I don't think it will take long, with the internet getting faster and faster, and I think the technology is getting better, isn't it?
Mm,
I think, but yeah, I don't teach. I mean, I don't really teach beginner students anymore. I
right.
don't. I used to when I first started, 20 something years ago. I taught little kids. That's not really my thing anymore. My thing is really sort of intermediate up.
Yeah,
What I really enjoy, what I get the
yeah.
most of, and yeah, so that's a little bit easier. I think with beginners, there'll be a little bit more one-to-one,
Mm.
almost full contact. I think with students from there. I think.
Yes, I mean I do a lot of teaching in schools, and I think I've really found a niche of teaching beginner kids,
Yeah,
and I've found that first of all, I think anyone under the age of 12 is easier to teach you hit that 13, 14, 15, and you've got this resistance. Like, why? Why am I doing that? Why have I got? You just do it. But yeah, teaching kids. I had a 6-year-old kid, and you just say, just put your finger here. This go 3rd fret, bottom string, and then just strum it 4 times. Then like 3rd string, bottom string, 3rd fret, 4th times, done. I was like, okay, great. Now do it 8 times. Good. Now switch to E minor. Okay, now do E minor to G. Now do it to a click. And they'll just sit there and just do it to a click. It's like, this is fucking easy.
Yeah, they're like sponges.
No. There's obviously the that you don't get that relationship that you get with someone that's older. There's obviously this barrier.
Well, there is that thing. I think there's a certain student in the middle. I mean, I teach quite a few in university, to be honest. But sort of that the teenage years and the early 20s, I think you're a little. I mean, I was as well. When I was 19, it was all Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Armstein. That's literally all I did. That's all I was interested in, pretty much. And then you come out the other side of that, and I'm teaching a lot more of those older adult guitar players, who are more open, shall we say, to new things. I mean, that said, a lot of my students, they're sort of 21, 18, 19, 20, whatever. It's interesting. I think they're more open than I was. I don't know whether I'm not sure they're listening to more things.
I don't know.
I'm finding less and less students nowadays. It's just like, no, I only play this thing. I mean, I do get them. You get the guitarist coming in with the coffin-shaped guitar, and it's like, it's not going to go so well on a Chic track. But let's,
all right, here we go.
Yeah, I don't know. It's but yeah, maybe those older guitar players, they come out the other side, and yeah, I think they're sort of definitely more open to trying new things, less resistant.
So I don't know what university students are like. I don't teach too many of them, but how do you find that students are listening to music? Like, are they listening to a lot? Are they listening to, like you said that as a player, they're very niched. Is their listening the same?
I think it's a really hard one. I think it's problematic. Well, I don't want to sound like, we're old guys, right? So I don't want to, it was all much better in my day. Of course it was.
But it was.
But I think the issue is it's problematic now. I get a lot of students and they know a lot of concepts, but they don't know how to apply them.
Yeah.
So they're into an Instagram player or whatever, and, they've learned some flashy, 6-string sweet picking lick and stuff, and it's like, well, where can you lock that into your playing? Am I going to see that on your play live or whatever and stuff? And they don't really know how to apply those things, and I think part of that is not deeply listening to things, critically listening. I find that quite a lot. I often teach a lot of, I teach a lot of repertoire based stuff in uni, and we'll talk about an artist one week. And I'll often ask, what other songs by this guitar player have you listened to? And it's like, the Tumbleweed.
Yeah.
So you can hear it floating across the room, and I know it's my job as a teacher to sort of, as a tutor, to kind of expand their horizons a little bit, but it does surprise me. And I think, I don't know, it's part of it as well. There's so much stuff.
That. Like you like everybody hates Spotify, I think, but especially musicians. But the amount of music that's just available at your fingertips is just overwhelming, I think. And when I talk to kids, like there's some high school kids that I teach, and first of all I'll ask, what music do you listen to? And the amount of students that say I don't listen to music. It's like, right, well, we're going to have to change that. So I'd write like 3 albums down. Just go and listen to these 3 albums for the week. There's a Van Halen record, there's Oasis, there's Damien Rice. Go listen to all 3 and come back and tell me what you think. And I am getting good response. Like, I listened to this one. Okay, what do you think of Van Halen? I was like, it was very... I can't remember what he said. He said it was like the guitar was the singer, and the singer was like on the side. I was like, okay. And what did you think of Damien Rice? So I was like, well, it was very calming and it moved me. It was really like, okay, what did you think of kind of blue. I said, it was really jazzy. It was just instruments. There was no singing. I said, did you like it? He's like, yes, I did actually. It's like, okay, great. Now go listen to these 3 albums. It's just like, when I'm sure it was the same with you. It's like, you get your £10 pocket money. You're going to go up to the record store. What can you get for 10 quid? And you've got to make it last for a week or a month or whatever. And I think
you're invested, aren't you? That's the thing. I think that's part of the issue. You know, if everything's free, then finding value in everything is much more difficult. And I think also that it's the technology as well. I mean, I come from the era where we still had audio tapes, so you were full. You know, you couldn't skip. You wouldn't listen for 30 seconds and then skip to the next song or whatever. So, you know, in a way, you were forced to listen to the whole thing or an album or whatever. And so I found myself, listening a lot more deeply, and certainly, you know, transcribing. I mean, I've heard a lot of your interviews with a lot of guitar players. And I think that was my focus. That's what I try and get a lot of guitar players to do now, is to try and transcribe without internet-based help.
Yeah.
You know, can you listen on a much deeper level and work it out for yourself? Not like I'm, you know, some YouTube guy. I mean, I guess I'm part of the problem, but somebody else showing you the answer to something can often be part of the issue. I think, you know, I remember, you know, God, wherever it was in my formative years, trying to work out the tapping lick in Always With Me, Always With You. Just Satriani, and I wore out a groove in the records. You know, it's like we had no idea that, you know, there was no video of this thing. I didn't know what was going on. You know, I needed a tutor or whatever. So it's kind of working out for these things, so you're kind of invested in it. I think that's super valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get so much more out of it as well if you spend 3 or 4 hours trying to work out. Even if you're trying to work out a chord, when you get it, you're like, fucking got it.
Yeah,
that sense of achievement, which, I mean, I try and get my students to do it as well in class, because I don't necessarily trust them to do it at home. I'll put a track on and say, what are those 3 chords? We've got half an hour. See if you can get them. And sometimes it's half an hour of them just literally just crossing off each and every open chord that they know until they find it.
Yeah, well, that's part of it, isn't it? It's sort of detective work. You to find things, and your ears will develop over time and get better at this kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, you know, we're sort of at the stage now. Certainly, this term when I'm teaching songs, you know, we're trying to take the stabilizers off, shall we say? So it's less about me at the front of the room going, "Hey guys, we're going to learn this song. Here's how the first chord goes." It's like, well, what have you learned? And if it is that tumbleweed moment where they're like, "Well, I haven't worked it out yet," and it's like, "Well, why not?" And then go and do it now. Yeah, I shouldn't be the font of all knowledge. I'm here to sort of guide you rather than tell you the way you should be doing it. I think.
I know, and I think that's something I don't think it's taught a lot. Certainly not taught a lot on YouTube. I think it's very difficult to sell videos on the how to train your ear. I think more people are far more interested in how to play those sweep tapping 16th runs that everybody loves. But I think for me, it's the key to learning. If you want to really get better, then tuning your ear in it's like reading. If you want to get better at writing stories or writing books, you just, like I had an English teacher said, just start reading books. Just start reading. Just read. You want to get better at music? Just fucking listen. Listen.
Actually listen as well. I mean, you know, don't just let it. It is the critical listening. It is that deeper level. I remember the first time, like you say, like when I worked something out, it was a glorious moment. You know, I did this. I worked out how to do this, you know, and I worked out the vibrato of, you know, such and such a player or whatever, you know. Man, it's such a powerful thing. Yeah. If not just trawled through the web and found some dodgy tab for an ultimate guitar, you know, which is wrong. So, it's definitely more powerful. I mean, I try and urge my students to do that for sure. Yeah. It's difficult for sure.
It is. Yeah. I mean, even if I've got gigs, sessions or shows coming up and it's like, okay, here's the set list. It's like, oh, there's one I don't know. So I'll put it on, I'll try and work it out. And then you're kind of 20 minutes into it and you're thinking, fuck it. fuck it, I'm just going to go find a chart for it because I've got 30 songs to learn by next Friday.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, fun enough, this gig I've got coming up in Switzerland, I'm playing the singer, a fabulous singer and a piano player who plays bass with his left hand. He basically, he's got kind of like a roster of tunes, shall we say? But often he'll just sit at the piano and go, "What? I don't know. What am I feeling like?" And he'll just start a chord progression. And half the time I've got my ear to the guitar, going, like, "Okay, what key am I in?"
Yeah.
You happen to use your ears. It's great.
Yeah.
And you just, if you know the song, great. But often, even if you know the song, it might be different. There might be some different chord changes. So I come with that benefit of, I mean, some to be fair, I've murdered some songs, but most of the time, I can fall back on my listening skills.
Yeah.
Developed over years. And I have to say the teaching helps a lot of the time. Teaching, I don't know about how it is for you, Tim, but through teaching, I think I've got much better as a guitar player. Actually, I not just understanding what I play, but just okay, we're going to do a listening lesson today. So all the time I'm practicing unconsciously anyway. That's helped.
Yeah.
So you can pick out chords and stuff like this. You can listen to a Stevie Wonder song and just pick out the chords. It just happens, doesn't it? Naturally often.
Yeah. I mean, I think teaching has definitely made me a better player, and I think it's also crossed over into working with other musicians, singers, artists, because you've got to, like, if you're teaching, sometimes you have to explain a concept, the same concept, 2 or 3 different ways because someone just isn't getting it. Yeah. And so then you've got to, okay, well, how am I going to say the exact same thing differently so that they understand?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the difference between guitar players that teach and those that don't. I come from that era. You remember those old REH videos, like Scott Henderson and Yngwie Malmsteen? Like Malmsteen, I absolutely love as a player. But he was like, okay, we're going to play the scale. And it was like...
what was that?
It was C major. Like, okay, can you actually break that down and explain what you're doing? And same thing as well. In these colleges and BIMM and places I've taught at, we'll get guitar players in, and sometimes it's like, well, how do you do that thing that you do? And some players are great at doing this, like Paul Gilbert, great player at doing that because he's done a lot of those clinics.
Yeah,
where people are saying, well, how what is it that you're doing right there? What's that legato lick? How do you do that? And then you're kind of looking at the fingers and having to look back at what you've done. I think you can usually tell.
Yeah. So what's
another one? Robin Ford, he's got better. His early stuff, if you look back at it, it was quite difficult for him to explain. And he had like a shadow writer to sort of explain the concepts, even though they were quite advanced. He's using the diminished scale and all the rest of it. But through the years, if you look at him now, he explains everything so much better than he used to. I think.
Yeah, I was watching an old Joe Pass video. I thought, I think I was working on Autumn Leaves. I was like, let's see what Joe Pass is doing on this. And he was walking through it, and I was like, I got the feeling that this guy doesn't teach because he would just breeze over something that's really important. It's like, just rewind that. What was that? Could you no, I can't. He's not broken that down. He's moving on.
Yeah. I remember many, many years ago, there was a Guitar World. Again, I'm showing my age here, but at Guitar World, sometimes they used to put a flimsy record on the front. And I remember the first year, and this is not that, like I said, this was like late 80s, I think. And there was a Joe Pass tune. He was going through all of his walking bass stuff, but it was somebody else's transcription.
Yeah.
And you'd listen to it and then use the transcription, but his explanation was like, I don't know what's going on here. But I kind of worked out from the chart. It was, Yeah.
Cool. I mean, just to see videos of that man play is just, that's enough, I think. I don't think, I chatted to Pete Callard a couple of months, about a year ago now. And he said, there's nothing that Joe Pass has done that isn't brilliant. It's like everything he's done is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, being able to hold an audience on stage with just you and a guitar, I mean, that's a thing.
That's a thing, yeah.
An incredible thing. There aren't many people that can do that, to be honest. I mean, that would scare the living daylights out of me, to be honest. I'm sure I could work to it, maybe if I wanted to do it. But, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So,
another level.
yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, because you said you taught at BIMM in the early 2000s. How has like university teaching changed over those 20 odd years?
Oh. I would say it's probably, wow, that's a difficult question. I say it's less niche
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot broader. So
Do you
I
think
think,
that's to its benefit?
I don't know, it's hard to say. I think I was thinking about this the other day. I think there's probably room for those kind of the GITs of this world.
Mm.
There was a time when that was everything. Certainly when I joined BIMM, there were places like Guitar X
Yeah.
in London. And you had these guys like, Sean Baxter, Pete Callard and the rest, like ridiculous players, Dave Kilminster. I still feel like there's room for that. But I think because of the university structure as it is, and I think certainly the entry requirements are pretty broad, so therefore the teaching becomes a lot more broad. I mean, it's so difficult to say. I mean, you could say, well, yeah, there are certainly things that I teach now which are a lot more watered down, for sure. But it's hard to say, well, is that just reflective of the type of students that I'm getting now? Maybe.
Or is the type of students reflective of the course that's being taught?
Well, that's the thing. That's the hard question. And I'm not a marketing man. I'm not in that. I don't know what the statistics are. I know there's still millions of guitarists around the world, and certainly thousands of guitarists in the UK that still want to learn that stuff. But it's tapping into it, I think. But maybe it's just a university structure because, by its nature, it's like, well, we have to do a little bit more academic stuff. When I was first doing it, it was sort of affiliated with the university, so there'd be a lot more kind of live performance based things. And some of the repertoire, we were doing like, Peaches and Regalia and like we do the entire 30-minute version of a Pink Floyd song, and it was challenging, man. Like, and we used to do a performance class. I'd personally love to see some of those things come back. Yeah, because I do see some students who really, really want to do that. I feel like, even though we have this kind of, let's call it the middle ground university music degree, shall we say, in performance, fine. We want to do a bit more of everything. But I think there are still a bunch of guitar players that want to be more niche and, learn jazz or learn, metal or whatever, these like, the techniques and the theory and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about your early days on guitar. I know you've dropped names like Steve Vai, Satriani, and Malmsteen. What was your reason for picking up the guitar? How did you get into it?
Well, I first started out on classical guitar. Actually, I was bought like a £5 acoustic guitar, and I hated it for a few weeks. Like every student who doesn't know how to do something. I really hated it, but I'm glad I persevered, and I had some lessons with a great tutor at my school who just, I got into sight reading, reading the dots, playing music. And funnily enough, I can't remember which song, I think it was Evil Eye by Yngwie Malmsteen. And there's a classical guitar intro to that. And I think it was based on Bach's Bourrée, which I'd been learning. And it was like, oh, there's a link between these two things. And I think that's what it was. And I think about 6 months to a year later, I was bought an electric guitar, and I started listening to people like Randy Rhoads and Malmsteen, a little bit more classical rock thing, or neoclassical, should we say? And then, but at the same time, I was listening to a lot of players like Clapton, B.B. King, stuff like that as well. So I had quite broad listening, and certainly for years, even before I picked up the guitar, I've been listening to Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
this is it. You sort of end up listening or listening to what your dad listens to. So mine was like physical graffiti. It was like it was everything. It was these massive riffs. So it's not a surprise. I got into stuff like John Sykes. I've recently reacquainted to that 1987 album. It's
insane. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a great guitar sound. The riffs are incredible, and that vibrato, man. And I know that's where a lot of my vibrato has come from.
Yeah.
Players that, you know. So I carried on classical guitar till I was about 18. I don't know when I did my grade 8, but I basically went all the way through to grade 8 on classical guitar. But then sort of the dark side took over.
Yeah, as it does.
And then probably by the time I was about 16, I was pretty much just playing guitar. That's all I wanted to do. That was it. Want to be a musician, want to be a rock and roll guitar player, and that was pretty much it from then.
Okay. And so what was your sort of practice? Were you kind of, I mean, how did you practice? Were you a metronome sheet music kind of person, putting records on and just trying to learn by ear? A bit of both. I mean,
I was the metronome thing later on.
Right.
I think when I started out, I was listening and transcribing. That's all I did. I just wanted to learn the guitar solo to, you know, such and such a tune. And I'd do my best effort at doing that. And eventually I might find a guitarist magazine somewhere which had a transcription of something, and I could maybe kind of go, oh, that's what it is. Right.
Yeah.
I was just listening to stuff and trying to pick it up by ear and, you know, do my best effort at mimicking somebody else was doing. You know, I'd hear a Gary Moore solo and try and do my best effort at doing that. I think that, you know, served me, you know, great stead for later on. And then I think it wasn't until my, I don't know, let's say 18, 19, 20, I was doing the metronome thing. So I was doing a lot more kind of 6 note per string, but all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was all technique. And Steve Vai and Satriani and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that sort of technical side, maybe that came from the classical guitar playing. I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, transcription, definitely. And when I say transcription, I don't mean that, you know, writing down. I just mean listening to stuff. I mean, later on when I did the magazine stuff, there was transcription.
Yeah.
Well. That really helped with that as well. So.
Okay. And so what does, you know, in terms of getting better as a player, what does it look like for you today?
Well, for me now, I guess there are 3 things for me. What gig have I got coming up?
Yeah.
You know, I've got to learn stuff. So that's my kind of immediate thing. You know, what have I got coming up? What do I need to learn? What songs do I need to learn? What do I need to play over? And the other thing will just be sort of repertoire-based playing. Like sometimes I just like to sit down. I think a lot of guitarists, they sort of forget why they picked up the guitar in the first, just for the love of playing. So I try and get that into my playing as much as possible. Just sit down, what comes out. I'm not trying to learn anything. I'm just trying to be creative and just sort of see what happens. And that could be something technical, or it could be chord-based or harmony, whatever. And the other thing I'm sort of doing more, I'm sort of developing my YouTube channel. So I'm kind of broadening my listening palette. So there are some things I'm trying to integrate more into my live playing. So, you know, for years I've been trying to work on my sort of outside playing.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably more, less repertoire based and more what's the theoretical idea, and then can you slot that into lots of different scenarios? That's what I really love that. And that's come from teaching.
Yeah.
And, you know, just sort of figuring out something. I really just like the sound of this. Or I might hear a guitar thing and I'll often sit down. But yeah, most of the time it's like, well, what time have I got? And then I'll try and divide that time up if I can. But, you know, like most of us, you know, we've got a life.
Yeah.
Really as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
But the time that I do have, I like to learn new things. I'm always trying to push myself, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely stretching out into new areas is always really good. Like I'm not a reader, but I decided last year that I wanted to do more reading gigs. So I just got a couple of books that were recommended, and I just sat down with the book and just like it was the first time that I had like a book to actually learn from. And just work through the book, get the real book. How well can you read these real tunes? How many standards can you get through? And then I just started picking up reading gigs, which is great.
Yeah, until you're faced with the tune in C flat major, and then
Well, I was going through the book. I was looking through this book, and I was opening it up, and I was like, oh, this piece is in D flat major. I was like, we're never going to get a piece in D flat major. And the first pad I got, open up, it's like D flat major. I'm like, you bitch.
Yeah, and funny. Well, that's one of the things that's changed in sort of university teaching. We don't teach sight reading anymore.
It's tragic. It's tragic.
Yeah, I mean, partly it's a reflection of work, gigging work, to be honest, which is a shame in a way, because it's not simply about, well, what am I going to do after university? It's like, for me, like you talking about reading something from a book, it's the discipline of doing the thing, whatever it is, the discipline of sitting down with a book or a transcription or listening to something and going through that whole process. That's part of it for me. So I don't know whether you're practicing sight reading in order to get a gig. Well, that might happen. There aren't really that many gigs where you actually have, even West End stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's so rare to just suddenly be presented with a bit of sheet music. Right, go.
Yeah.
And so the spot, you'll get it for a few weeks beforehand. You'll sit in on the show.
Yeah.
So it's not really sight reading, but knowing the dots is really useful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely more of where I'm at is you got a month. Here's the show. Go prepare it at home. Come in for rehearsal and run through it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think on one or two of the shows I've been given the song, it's like we've changed the key from G to F. And it's like, okay, well, that's not too difficult. I should be okay with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was presented to me on the day in rehearsal, and that was a bit of a ooh kind of moment. Okay.
But even on the basic level, just being able to navigate just with basic sort of roadmap symbols and chords. Like for me, that's fundamental. But that's not a class, a unit, should we say, in air quotes, that teach anymore. But I'll still teach it because it's you and I both know you can't remember 30 songs in a week.
Yeah.
Well, it can't anyway.
Yeah. Well, not now. I used to in my 20s. I think I could cram them in.
Yeah, now I'm a bit older, but I'll chart stuff out, and that's a given. That's a basic. Everyone should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Even if you're not writing any of the dots, but just can you write your roadmap symbols? Can you read and navigate through a chord chart at sight as well? Somebody is one thing. You will be given sight reading on that level for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do that with a lot of my slightly older students. They'll come and sit down, and I'll just present them with a chart and say, I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes, have a look through any chords that you don't know, ask, and I'll tell you how to play it. And I'll give you 3 minutes, then I'll put the song on, you're going to play through it. And I think that's a great exercise.
Yeah.
And it's useful as well.
Yeah, you need to have, again, it's sort of coming back to that, the discipline and also, sort of being in that ugly zone when you're finding something really difficult. Everyone wants to go, you have to go through that.
Yeah.
It's really, I remember doing my grade 8 exam on classical guitar. My sight reading sucked. It was so bad. I was trying to read something in 7th position. I just, there were all these ledger lines and no. Didn't happen. I still passed. It was fine. But it was hideous. So, getting better at those things. Yeah, I totally admire that. Certainly, when you're a bit older, going back to something and trying to get better at doing that thing, it's a really cool thing for sure.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is like? What would you say is good advice for people who are kind of in that struggle zone? Because we always seem to plateau. Like if you're in that little plateau, you just think I'm just not getting better. What advice do you give people to sort of kick them out of it?
Well, I think part of it is knowing what you want to do. Yes. Which sounds really ridiculous, but I get a lot of guitar players and they want to, slot something in their guitar playing, whether that's, can I put this Robin Ford lick in, or I'd like to do sweep picking or whatever it is. And it's kind of like, well, what is it that you play and where do you see yourself in a few months' time? And I think, again, it's sort of going back to what we were talking about earlier on with this sort of, it's not the lack of discipline necessarily of the student themselves, but just because there's so much stuff, very easy to get distracted. I find, oh, that's an amazing YouTube guitar player, and then I want to learn this thing, and you find yourself, before too long, you've learned something for 5 minutes, then you're on to something else.
Yeah,
I think my advice would always be, learn to be disciplined in what you want to do. So, it's not okay. I'm going to learn the altered scale for a week and then it's done. Well, it's not, is it? I mean, come on,
No.
it's not.
No, it's been 20 years and I'm still like, what the fuck?
So, yeah, exactly. These things are a lifetime. And, and that's part of it. Just being honest with yourself. That's another thing. Be honest with your guitar playing. Be honest with where your guitar playing is at. Like, what are you good at? Because I think a lot of guitar players, when they practice, they just play stuff they're good at.
Yeah.
Already, which is great. We'll love to do that. And often when we play gigs, we want to play things we're good at, right? But there has to be a point when we're going through that difficult, the ugly zone or whatever you want to call it, where we're playing and practicing something we're not good at. It's hard. It's really hard to develop that discipline. It's not easy. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but you sort of have to put yourself through that process. I don't know whether that's advice or good advice, but certainly that I see a lot of that, and I think that's what I find myself telling a lot of guitar players.
Yeah. And we've spoken a lot about like guitar magazines, and I know you did a lot. I mean, the first time I stumbled across your name, I think it was a transcription of it was Hangar 18. It was in Total Guitar. 1998, I think. I've still got it kicking around somewhere. And I know that Guitar Techniques closed its doors, towards the end of last year.
Very sad, yeah.
And it's I just think that as a musical learning resource, the amount of info that is in one magazine, that could carry you through for a year.
Yeah. And
you got that monthly.
I've still got early issues Guitar Techniques magazine. Yeah. And it's one of my regrets. We've all sold a guitar which we shouldn't have sold, but I've given magazines, and man, the ones I keep, I sometimes I'll still go back to. Pete Calloth. I've got some of cottons. I'll go back to them, man. It's just such a great resource.
Yeah,
and it hit me, man. It hit like I haven't really done any work in anger for Total Guitar and Guitar Techniques up until they closed, probably for a good sort of 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And in fact, Guitar Techniques for a little bit longer than that. But it hit me, man. Like when it closed, I was really sad.
Yeah, same here.
Nostalgia, I guess. And it's like, oh, this is something that's gone. But it was definitely part of my learning and upbringing. It was amazing.
It was, yeah. I mean, like the first Pete Callard thing I ever saw was he did it was a 12-bar blues and just how to expand out of the pentatonic. And he's like, all right, we're going to start off just a 12-bar blues. You're going to use a pentatonic over each chord change. Then I'm going to use the Mixolydian over each chord change. And then I'm going to go full jazz. I was like, son of a fucking bitch. I'm using Lydian flat dominant before I change to the 4 chord, the altered scale over the 5 chord, bringing us back to 1. And it was just fucking mind blowing. And like the amount of knowledge that was in those 12 bars was just, you'd spend a lifetime on it.
Yeah.
Digging through it.
That's the thing as well. The price point that it was at. Think about it. Like those first few issues when they first came out, it was only a few quid.
Yeah,
$3.99. I honestly, but it wasn't expensive. But the value that you got for that, cover mount CD, I think in the early, well, certainly Guitar Techniques cover mount CD, and just the resource. There was just so much stuff there. It was amazing. Well, in fact, too much to get through in a month.
Yeah, it was like I said. It could last you a year. I bought a Total Guitar magazine about 2 years ago, and I thought, how long would it take me to go through from the very first lesson transcription? Usually, it's like a 1-minute lick, and go through the whole magazine. And I was flicking through it. I was like, that I could probably do today. Yeah. That would probably take me a week. That one, that's challenging. That's a couple of months, I reckon. Yes, and then exactly. towards the back, you'd get some Martin Taylor lesson. I'm like, that is a year at least to try and get some of that thumb and walking bass stuff, all the jazz chords that he does. Like, and that's again, that's when I was like, these things are so valuable, and I've just I've got shelves full of them. It's like I'm never getting rid of them.
Yeah, don't. I'm gonna keep those first issue of Guitar Techniques, that's for sure. I mean, that was so good. I mean, yeah, again, it's changing times, isn't it? Stuff's online.
Yeah.
And I think future publishing didn't do themselves many great favors. I know in Germany they did a lot better with the online stuff.
Yeah.
They were a little bit further ahead of the game. And I know Guitar World is still doing their online thing. And I think some of my old articles still get published in there, which unfortunately I get paid for.
Oh, bugger.
But it's cool. It's, my name's still out there. It's all cool.
Yeah.
That's still going, but it's not the same. Again, it's like what we were talking about at the beginning. It's that physical product.
Yeah.
You look forward to the day that it'll be on the newsstand. I'll go to W.H. Smith's,
Yeah.
pick up a copy or whatever, or you'd, get the subscription.
Yeah.
It would come to the door. Amazing.
It's just, it's changes. Let's talk about changes. Because I know I've seen a couple of your videos, your YouTube videos, and you've gone through a lot of. I've seen some Robin Ford licks, playing some altered scales, and I've always kind of known you as a rock hard metal guitar player. So how did you? What's your advice for playing over changes and things like that?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not an expert at doing this. I'm pretty good, and I do my thing, and I've studied, and I'm getting better. This is part of it. This is the podcast. Trying to get better at that kind of thing, and it's going to be a lifetime's work. But I think, there was this sort of crossover point when I was about 22, where I started doing proper gigs, like actual gigs where I get paid money.
Yeah.
I am going to answer your question, by the way. It's just this bit. I was doing a lot of funk stuff. And I'd come from this background of, I was playing Malmsteen and Steve Vai. That's what I knew how to do. And then suddenly I was playing a proper gig. But not to say that a proper gig, you couldn't do that stuff as well. But the gigs that I was doing, I had to learn some Nile Rodgers tunes. And man, that was good for my playing. I suddenly learned how to play with pocket and groove and time and all this sort of stuff. So I don't know when that was, maybe 19, 20. I can't remember how old I was. So I sort of suddenly, my path veered off slightly. I still love that music, but I wasn't practicing it anymore because it wasn't relevant to my playing career. And again, when I got into sort of session work and stuff, I was playing a lot of songs which are sort of just G, C add 9, D.
Yeah.
I was like, well, okay, so all this stuff that I was learning, this is not particularly relevant. And then sort of to answer your question, sort of playing over changes and all that sort of stuff, really that came from listening to Robin Ford and suddenly hearing something I'd never really put into my playing and heard before. And there was suddenly this like superlocry, someone said the word superlocry and I was like, well, what is that thing? In fact, it might have even been Pete Callard at the Wembley Guitar Show. And it was like, it was just another world of interesting stuff. Yeah. Basically. And I guess really that got me listening to, I guess probably Robin Ford, John Scofield were those guys. Yeah. And, they're pretty good at not playing over changes. They can play over a static groove. That's what I was really into. So it was kind of almost like the punk thing. And then I could sort of see that side of it reflected in lead playing as well. This amazing pocket, where you could play with swing or whatever. And then just these amazing, gorgeous note choices. I kind of got more into harmony and melody a little bit more, I would say. So that kind of got me into that kind of thing. So really, it was just studying more of that. Like, well, how does that work? Why does that sound so amazing to my ears? And why does it turn my head when I hear it? I still love that kind of goosebump moment. Yeah. When you hear a really good, altered lick or whatever. So I started really getting into that and trying to integrate that into my playing, but not to the point, I'm not a jazz player. I've played jazz songs, but I'm not a jazz guitar player. Would never profess to be. But I've always loved that blues into jazz crossover thing. Yeah. And so I was finding that I could do that kind of thing on a gig without pissing off the guests or whatever. So that's really where my journey's at. And I think the YouTube thing is just really off the back of lessons. Is that I guess yeah, I'm into this kind of thing. And then I've had a lot of guitarists asking me about it. Well, how do you do this? And how do you make it sound musical? That's the thing.
That's the difficult.
Well, that's the journey, isn't it? It's like, well, there's learning a concept, and then there's the most difficult part is making it sound musical and then slotting that into a piece of music.
The thing that I always found difficult with it, and I've gone to multiple different teachers, and they've all given me completely different not ideas, but different answers. I had a few lessons with Pete Callard, and he was like, "Right, if you want to play over changes, we're just going to play through the triads. You're going to play it in eighth notes, and you're going to follow a 2-5-1." I was like, "Okay," and that was a great concept. And then I went and had a lesson with a sax player. I was like, "Well, how do you play over a 2-5-1?" And he said, "Well, guitar players, and I've noticed this, think vertically. They'll think D minor, G7, D7, whereas sax players think linearly. They think melodically, going from left to right." He said, "So find a start note, and you've really got to use your ear and just listen. Where do I want it to go? Do I want it to move this way and go up? Do I want it to come down? If I want to make it sound tense, what notes do I like the sound of that adds tension? Do you like the flat 9 or do you prefer a sharp 5?
Yeah.
Whatever you prefer, lean into that a little bit. So it's a lot more listening based rather than sort of theory based. And I think both have got their place.
I have to say, a lot of my teaching over the years, and very much lately, has been playing over a 12-bar blues. Because it's like it's probably the best example I can think of playing over the changes when most guitar players don't play over the changes. You know, well, come on guys, let's play a blues in A, and I just play A minor pentatonic over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you can get your head around the idea that it's basically 3 key centers rather than 1, and then start integrating that into your playing, I think it's a really, really good starting point, launch pad for this idea of playing over changes, so we say in sort of air quotes.
Yeah.
And that's the start of it. And I have to say, what you were saying about adding tension and knowing what those notes are, it's really sort of decoupling the scale that you're playing. You know, I've always loved that idea of rather than learning your scale from bottom to top, which is what all guitar players do, right? I did it from start, but you always end up playing scale ideas from bottom to top, and it sounds like you're just running scales. Like again, saxophone players just don't do that. Sticking it in a different way. So it's really sort of trying to break that down a little bit and go, well, can we target maybe one string? I love that. You know, Matt Schofield does that really well. You know, great guitar player. You know, for teaching soloing on one string, can you do that? Because it forces you out of being stuck. Yeah. Like, can you hear the changes? Can you see it? Do you know what note you're playing when we hit that chord change? Suddenly, when you go to the 4 chords, can you reflect that in your playing? I would say my teaching is very much based now on scaffolding that idea of, okay, so can you reflect, let's call it a scale, or the notes of that particular chord. So yeah, coming back to the triad, fundamental to that for sure. Like, can you just play the triads over it before we even get into guitar soloing? A lot of guitar players can't even do that. You know, or you can't play the 3rd and the 7th of those chords all over the neck. It's hard.
Yeah. But that's the reason we're studying.
Yeah.
This is the business we've chosen. I had a great lesson with Mike Goodman when I was studying at the ACM, and he did that. He just got us to play triads over a G chord. Yeah. And he said, if you don't know what note you're on, then you're not allowed to move, essentially. If you don't know what note you're going to, if you don't know where you're going or where you've come from, it's like, well, what the fuck are you doing there?
Yeah. I mean, Mike's a great tutor. And I've known Mike and I've been friends for many, many years. But he's a great teacher, great guitar player, great teacher. Yeah. But it's a sort of getting back to basics. And a lot of guitar players, they really value the way that he teaches. That's the thing. I mean, that's, you know, like, first of all, can you play it? Can you show us that thing? Yeah. But then break it down in a way that we can understand it and then do it ourselves. That's really hard, for sure.
It's a gift for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, teaching, like playing over changes and tension and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that it just takes a little bit of time. Quite often, the way I teach is, what do you know already? If you know a blues scale, well, then you already know a little bit about tension. If you know where the flat 5 is in a blues scale, how do we not down tense? Well, we just slide out of it.
Yeah.
So it's it all sounds very, very simple, but quite often these are the holes in people's knowledge and playing. I think, and it's just, and I have to say, I learn a lot from other guitar players and just having a chat with other guitar players. This is another benefit of teaching in a university.
Yeah.
And playing other gigs as well, playing with saxophone players. But all these guitar players that I've been teaching with, people like Jim Clark, John Wheatcroft, and Eve, man, you just pick up so many great things from those guys. Well, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, I mean, I think everyone's got their own approach to it, and whether you're a kind of melodic based, whether you're theory based, I think so long as you're able to make that transition from learning theories and concepts into making music.
Yeah, I think when I first started out, I would, again, sort of going back to what I was saying before, I used to transcribe solos. I was good. That was my thing. I could play a note, play a solo note for note, same, whatever it was. And later on, I sort of tried to work out what was going on after that, because obviously then it's not translatable, it's not transferable, shall we say, into another situation. Learning someone's guitar solo for the sake of learning it over that one song. Well, then how are you going to take that concept and put it into something else and slot it into another genre or style or key? Yeah. So that was always the thing for me. So pretty early on, I was kind of, can I put this into different keys? Can I go through the cycle of fourths? Whatever it was, any different strategies for trying to do the same thing. So there's always this idea of playing a lick in as many different ways as possible. How many different permutations of the same idea can you have? Really going back to what we were talking about before, a lot of these students, they come to you with many concepts, but it's like, well, can you, they can play this amazing Dorian lick, and it's like, well, okay, first of all, can you play that in another key? Can you put it into another tempo? Can you put it into another feel? Can you put it into a rock tune? Whatever it is. Yeah. Invariably, they can't. So I was, I spent a lot of my time teaching that.
I mean, one of the first kind of lessons that I had when it came to sort of lead guitar playing was that idea of taking, I think it was Andy Jones actually, back in the ACM. He gave us a lick. He gave us one lick and he said, now you're going to do is play it backwards. Now you're going to play it inside out. Now you're going to start at the start, but the end is in the middle and then the middle is in the end. And said, this is how you turn one lick into 50 licks. And it was just like, oh, fucking hell. Now try and play it in 7/8. Now try and play it. Here's a country lick, put it into a metal song. Here's a metal lick, put it into a country tune. What are you going to have to change? Where are you going to shift? Okay, we're doing it in A major. Now make it sound Dorian. And it was like, fucking hell. He just took one lick and it lasted all fucking lesson. Yeah. And it was just amazing.
Well, this is the thing. This is part of the issue, shall we say, with online teaching. Is this not quite as sexy, is it?
No. Oh, no.
But it's the most valuable. It really is. Yeah. How to get value out of something. It's not like, 100 licks in the style of. I mean, I've done them myself, right? Yeah. but it's actually like going to the heart of that. Like, can you learn that, and then can you make it your own? That's the thing. Make it your own, turn it something else, turn it inside out. Again, it's going back to that thing of, rather than learning lots and lots of different licks, again, if we're talking about the altered scale, rather than learning all these different altered licks by different guitar players, like, can you just do one and make it sound really good? Can you make it sound in time? Yeah. I mean, that's like, can you play something in time? Because
wow, the amount of people that I've turned up that can't do that, like, it's shocking. I had a student that turned up last week. Was it last week before? He said, I've just passed my grade 5 and I'll do my grade 6. I was like, cool, here's a click. Can you just play a G chord in time? And it's like, struggled. I was like, how? How have you passed grade 5 and are preparing for grade 6 and you can't play to a click at 100 BPM? Just in crotchet. How is that possible? How's no one else picked up on this? How's none of your other teachers clocked that, fuck, this guy can't play in time?
Yeah,
like, I don't know. I find that shocking.
I don't want to be an old man grumbling about the state of things, but again, I don't know whether it's the threshold, the bar has been lowered
to a point that anyone can pass.
That's the kind of thing, it's possible for sure.
I mean, nobody seems to want to fail students. I've heard that when students hand in pieces of coursework, there is no fail. It's just, I can't remember the word they use. It was a really horrible Orwellian word. It was like it was like sub-pass or something like that. It was below pass. It's like, just put fail. Like you've done. You haven't.
There's one. I'm not going to name names, but there's one called a moderate fail. It's not a fail. I mean, it's not a complete failure, but we need to have that.
You need to, like, people need to live in reality. Like, if you've done something that is shit, you need to know that what you've done is shit. It's below par. It's not good enough, and you need to go away and make it better.
Yeah.
Like I'll drop his name again. When one of my first lessons with Pete Callard, he gave me a tune. He said, "Just want to see how you can sight read this." He put a tune up, fairly easy. And I just fucking fumbled my way through it. And he said, "All right, don't play it an octave high. Just play it in an octave lower. See if that's out." And it was shit. And he said, "You should be embarrassed of yourself." He said, "That was terrible." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "You need to go away and practice more."
Yeah.
And so I went away and practiced more. But if he'd said that was okay, why didn't we try doing that? So I'd leave going, yeah, I did an okay job.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Whiplash.
Yes, yeah, of course.
I go back to, I see that movie once, maybe twice a year, and that's an extreme form of teaching. But fucking hell, do you not get the best out of people?
It's interesting. I've talked
psychological damage aside.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, like when I first was teaching, let's call it university teaching. And again, I don't know if the sensibilities of students have changed. I mean, again, I have to also recognize that I'm a lot older, so I've changed as well. Yeah. But certainly there was a time when it was like, man, there would be no question of coming into class and not having learned the song to the best of your ability. And even then, if it wasn't very good, you would be called out on it. And again, I know you spoke to Jim Clark recently. We both taught a guitar player called Phil Short. He's doing a Westlife thing and all sorts of stuff. Fabulous guitar players. But when he first came to college, he was like, "Your vibrato is shit. You need to go away and work on this."
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't an issue because he had a fire under his ass. He wanted to work on these things. And it was like, okay, I need to be told what's not good.
Yeah.
And look at him now. I'm not saying that that's the thing, but it's like you need to be told that you're not good at something.
Yeah. Well, if you want to get better, and it is hard to know the truth or to hear the truth, but ultimately, it's for the best.
Well, it's also, again, early days of Guitar X and those guys as well. I do remember quite vividly seeing students, or at least there'd be a meeting with a student prior to wanting to join a course. And the question would be, we talk about theory and guitar playing and all the rest of it. But Francis Serio, who he was great, and he would often say to the students, "We're not quite ready yet. Come back next year." I mean, that's quite refreshing. It wouldn't happen now. Yeah. It just wouldn't happen just because, we're talking, the fees of students and stuff and UCAS points and all the rest of it. Again, I don't want to grumble about the level of students now, but for sure it's easier. But the idea that it's like you can tell someone, well, you're not good enough yet for this. Go away and work on this.
Yeah.
to their credit, I do have a lot of students now, which I do teach at university, where you can say that to them. You need to work on this, this, and this. Of course, some students which don't want to do that, they don't want to work on that. But yeah, you need to be able to tell them, right?
Yeah. Well, I was denied doing the degree course at the ACM because my sight reading wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got called into the office, and I was like, "Here we go! Like, this is going to be a welcome to the degree course." And they went, "Yeah, we've looked over your final marks for last term, and your sight reading's not good enough. We're not going to let you on." It's like, oh shit. Yeah, and everyone else that I've spoken to, like Jim and John and a few others, like, just wouldn't happen now.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a. Partly, I do understand, right? You know, we're all talking about mental health and all the rest of it and stuff, but the thing is, you don't want the first time to be on the bandstand that you feel that, oh shit, I'm not good for this. You don't. I mean, we've all been through that. Like I remember some gigs. We've all done awful gigs. But they're the things which give you that fire to work on something. Yeah. You know, if I completely murdered something, I'll go away and work on that thing. I'll make sure the next time I'm not going to, you know, feel like I want to crawl into a hole. You know, that's the thing. You have to go through that, you know. And so I would say university now is a very safe space. That's for sure.
Too safe?
It can be, yeah. I mean, you know, there are. I have to be slightly careful what I say and be diplomatic.
I want to get you in trouble.
There are pathways, shall we say, in a performance class where you don't really need to perform anymore. Right. You know, and this is not, you know, simply reflective of where I teach. It's just like, this is everywhere. You know, you can go and do a performance degree, and I get it. There are different pathways. You might decide, well, this is not for me. I want to go into journalism or whatever. I do understand it, but it's again, I'll go back to what I said before. There are people that just want to play. Yeah. Get in a band, go and play.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice.
I wouldn't have a job, would I? If I said that to everyone, just go and be in a band. Don't come to university. I wouldn't have a job. So,
I mean, I think universities are a great place. I mean, if used correctly and you're prepared to do the work and you're prepared to listen to feedback, then, you know, a place that's dedicated to any kind of education, I think is good.
Yeah, but you know, there is the darker side of that as well. And again, I'm not going to name names, but I've taught with people. In fact, I taught with a guitarist once who would turn around because they didn't want to give away what they were playing. You know, it's like the old the Eddie Van Halen story, isn't it? When he didn't want to give tapping licks. It's like, man, dude, well, come on, you know, you be generous.
Yeah.
Like I would say, pretty 99.9% of the tutors I've ever taught with are extraordinarily generous with their knowledge. That's the pleasure of it, isn't it? Teaching.
Yeah. Well, that was
sharing your knowledge with the world.
Yeah. And in the hope that everyone gets as kind of as passionate about it as you are, and they go off and do their own thing and form their own career.
But you know what I mean? But part of that generosity is also finding that line of being hard, but not cruel. Yeah. Again, like I've been in classrooms where people have been cruel, just they're in a bad mood or whatever. And it's like, well, you know, okay, maybe that's, you know, telling someone's vibrato is shit because you know that student and you know that they can take it. You know that they're going to respond to it is one thing. So there is a fine line for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yes. And on that note,
on that bombshell.
Steve, thank you so much for your time. I do really, really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.
And we will talk soon.
Fantastic. Nice one, Tim.
Thank you.
All right.